Students, so today's topic is on nutrition in plants and animals. So plants and animals, if you see, they both comes under living organisms, right? Plants and animals both are living organisms. As both are living organisms, definitely they need food. So why the food is needed for every living being? To get energy. So main purpose of obtaining food is to receive energy or to get energy. So why energy is required? Definitely energy is needed for every living being to perform their metabolic activities or to perform their body functions, right? So especially this energy is needed for growth and repair of the body cells. Maybe that is a multicellular organism or else unicellular organism, or that category belongs to plants or else animals, whatever it is. Every living being requires energy to perform their metabolic activities, which are responsible for growth as well as repairing of the cells. Okay, even some of the organisms need food to maintain body temperature also. So some of the organisms may be cold-blooded, some of the organisms are warm-blooded. Maybe you heard this in your lower classes. Warm-blooded animals, especially to maintain their body temperature, they need more energy. Remember, like human being, you can take example. We are the warm-blooded animal. To maintain our body temperature constantly, we require more energy than the cold-blooded animal. So for that purpose also, sometimes some of the organisms require food. Whatever it is, main intention of obtaining food by any organism is to get energy. Okay, a large variety of substances are taken as food from single cellular organisms like amoeba to a complex multicellular organisms like the human body, right? Many varieties of substances can be taken as food by different type of organisms. Suppose you take amoeba. So what is amoeba? Amoeba is unicellular organism, irregular in shape it is, which belongs to protozoan category, right? So this amoeba takes maybe like some phytoplanktons or maybe zooplanktons, which are very microscopic in nature. So the prey of the amoeba, if you see, is very minute in shape and size, very minute structure, and they obtain as food. Amoeba obtain this minute particles as food. Coming to human being, you know, you all are familiar which type of food we eat, which are complex in nature, like some of the carbohydrates, some of them are fat, some of them are proteins, some of them rich with vitamins and minerals. Like that, different type of substances we all living beings consume as food. Okay, so like this, based on the type of food we are obtaining and based on the mode we are following to obtain our food, organisms are classified mainly into two categories. They are autotrophic and heterotrophic. Autotrophic and heterotrophic. Suppose you see here, the mode of acquiring food also varies from cell to cell and organism to organism. Do you agree with that? Definitely. We all should agree with that, because mode of acquiring food definitely varying from one cell to another cell and one organism to another organism. Already I told you, right? Suppose amoeba, you take example. Amoeba can obtain its food through cell membrane, right? Through cell membrane directly into the amoeba body. Coming to human being, we take our food through one of the ingestion methods, that is through our mouth, right? So different organisms or different cells are maintaining different mode of nutrition, different ways to obtain their food. So based on that, these organisms are classified into autotrophic and heterotrophic. What are they? Yeah, autotrophic and heterotrophic. Autotrophic, heterotrophic. Okay, so out of them we'll study about autotrophic in today's session. Suppose if you see here, how do heterotrophs get their food, how do autotrophs get their food? Generally, as you studied in your lower classes, everyone can Say the answer. Autotrophs can obtain their food by themselves. Heterotrophs can obtain food by depending on others. Okay, so detailed discussion and detailed nutrition modes in both autotrophs and heterotrophs will study. Okay, so coming to autotrophic mode of nutrition first. Okay, coming to autotrophic nutrition, if you see, what is meant by autotrophic? Auto, the meaning of auto, if you see, which means self, by themselves. So this trophic nutrition or this mode of nutrition is organisms can depend on themselves or by themselves they can prepare their own food. Such type of organisms are known as autotrophic mode of nutrition, or such type of organisms are known as autotrophic organisms. So best example for that is green plants. Generally we all say that green plants comes under autotrophic mode of nutrition because they can prepare their own food by utilizing light energy and water. Because of the presence of chlorophyll, they can convert the carbon dioxide to glucose. That everyone knows that. And one more interesting point here is autotrophic mode of nutrition actually two types. This is the extra information, try to understand. Okay, autotrophic mode of nutrition, if you see, that is two types. They are phototrophic and chemotrophic. Phototrophic and chemotrophic mode of nutrition. So what is meant by phototrophic? So phototrophic is nothing but organisms which can obtain their food by utilizing light energy. So you all know what is photo. Photo is related to light. So organisms which can utilize light energy and can prepare their own food are known as phototrophic organisms or phototrophic mode of nutrition. So this best example for this is nothing but all green plants. All green plants comes under that. So coming to what is this chemotrophic mode of nutrition. Chemotrophic is nothing but organisms which can utilize chemicals to prepare the food. Organisms which can utilize chemicals to prepare their food. So why I given this introduction part or this idea about this? Related to this, some of the concepts are discussed in your class 10th biology. So have an idea on this, what is meant by chemotrophic mode of nutrition. So by using chemicals, some of the organisms can prepare their food. They are known as chemotrophic mode of nutrition. So can you tell me what is chemotrophic? What is the example for chemotrophic mode of nutrition? What is the best example for chemotrophic mode of nutrition? Suppose you see here chemotrophic mode of nutrition. Example is sulfur bacteria. Sulfur bacteria. You know sulfur, right? Which can be represented with S symbol in chemistry. So this bacteria, a unique type of bacteria is there which depends on the sulfur chemical to prepare its food. So here also this bacteria is not depending on any other living being. Actually this bacteria is depending on inorganic material that is known as sulfur, and it is obtaining its own food. So that this is known as autotrophic mode of nutrition. This is one of the autotrophic mode of nutrition because sulfur bacteria is not depending on any other living organism. It is depending on sulfur chemical. So that chemotrophic mode of nutrition is also known as or also comes under autotrophic mode of nutrition. Okay, so that is about chemotrophic. And we will discuss now about phototrophic. Phototrophic means what? That is also one of the autotrophic mode of nutrition, right? But here light energy can be utilized to prepare the food, especially by green plants. So coming to this autotrophic mode of nutrition, we will discuss now about phototrophic mode of nutrition. So what happened in that? We know that autotrophs are the organisms capable of using light energy to synthesize chemical compounds, right? They acquire nutrients like some minerals and water from the soil as well as some gases from the air. They are capable of producing complex compounds like carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, etc. from these very simple substances. Or else easily we can define autotrophic mode of nutrition as, or else phototrophic mode of nutrition, how can we define as? Green plants, okay, green plants are the organisms which are consisting of chlorophyll convert, okay, they convert inorganic components like, what are the inorganic components? Inorganic components like CO2, water, okay, and sunlight. By utilizing chlorophyll or by having chlorophyll, these inorganic components can be converted into complex organic substance that is known as glucose or else carbohydrate. So all the inorganic components can be converted into complex organic substance that is known as glucose, C6H12O6. C6H12O6. So detailedly we will see what is that. Okay, then you will understand what means or what is meant by phototrophism or else phototrophic nutrition. Okay, you can see here autotrophic nutrition case. If you see, we know that autotrophs are the organisms capable of using light energy to synthesize chemical compounds. Definitely they utilize the light energy, and they acquire nutrients like some minerals and water from soil as well as some gases from the air. So where do they obtain all these raw materials? Actually, what are the raw materials required for photosynthesis? When you understand the photosynthesis equation, easily you can say like CO2 plus H2O in presence of sunlight and chlorophyll, it can give rise to C6H12O6 plus O2 and some traces of water. So that is indicating that plants are utilizing water and carbon dioxide, even sunlight. So what these raw materials are available to plant from which parts of the environment? Suppose you take best example, water. So water, how it is available to the plant? From the soil. From soil, plants are getting water as well as some type of minerals, some amounts of minerals also, like micronutrients and macronutrients, you know well, I think. So these all are obtained from the soil itself. And what about carbon dioxide? It can be obtained through the environmental gases. Through stomata, it can enter into the plant body. Through stomata, they can enter into plant body. Okay. Even sunlight, anyhow, it can be obtained from the sun. Chlorophyll is already present in the plant body. So by utilizing all these, they can convert all these inorganic substances into complex organic form that is known as glucose. And here if you see, this is the best example, and the diagrammatic structure is given here. You can check here. Let me show. Here if you see this picture, so carbon dioxide plants are obtaining from atmospheric gases, and they utilize solar energy, and they obtain water from the soil. So these are the basic raw material, and this green color is indicating that they are having chlorophyll. So by using all these four raw materials, they are doing photosynthesis process, and they are preparing glucose, which can be stored in the plant body in the form of starch. So C6H12O6 is nothing but glucose. C6H12O6 is nothing but glucose, which can be stored in the plant body in the form of starch. And Oxygen which is released during photosynthesis is not at all required for the plant, so that it can be eliminated from the plant body. So that is about autotrophic mode of nutrition, is also known as photosynthesis. Okay, suppose you can check here this part. If you see, this is example of chemotrophic mode of nutrition. So already I told you, sulfur bacteria we discussed. So that comes under this. This is chemotrophic mode of nutrition. So these are some of the microscopic view, Amma. This is, you can observe here. These are the sulfur bacteria which depend on the sulfur chemical. These all are sulfur bacteria. Okay. So that is about autotrophic mode of nutrition. And coming to the next part. Suppose you see, you have studied something about photosynthesis in your earlier classes, right? In that we have studied that von Helmont and other scientists believe that plants get their food material not only from soil but also from the other sources. So this scientist von Helmont, this particular scientist, what he discussed, they believe that plants get their food material not only from the soil but also from the other sources. What are the other sources? Like carbon dioxide, sunlight, even they have the chlorophyll to prepare their own food. Like that, they got an idea that plants not only depending on the soil, even they are depending on other raw materials and other aspects for getting their basic raw materials to prepare their food. So can you think some raw materials needed for photosynthesis? So what are the raw materials needed for photosynthesis? Definitely equation once you see, Amma. This chemical equations I hope you know in your chemistry part. CO2 plus H2O gives rise to, in presence of sunlight, okay, in presence of sunlight and chlorophyll, definitely these two should be there. This CO2 and H2O can react with each other to form C6H12O6. That is nothing but the glucose plus O2 plus some amount of water can be released. So these are the reactants and these are the products. All these are reactants and all these are products. Like this, photosynthesis equation can be established. It indicates that carbon dioxide, water, sunlight, chlorophyll are the raw materials needed for the photosynthesis. So what could be the end products of the process of photosynthesis? End products are nothing but products. Product is nothing but what are they? Glucose, oxygen and some amount of water are the product or end product of the photosynthesis. So let us study the process of photosynthesis in detail to know more about this. So when we see this process of photosynthesis, detailed information can be understood. So you can check here. Photosynthesis is the process by which plants containing green pigment, that is chlorophyll, build up a complex organic molecule from relatively simple inorganic ones using sunlight as an energy source. So the process of photosynthesis is very complex. Definitely it is very complex because many steps involved in that. But we skipped all the steps and the ultimate products. What are the ultimate products only we are indicating. Between that equation, suppose you see raw materials to the product, that is nothing but this particular equation. CO2 plus H2O gives rise to C6H12O6 plus H2O plus O2. Many steps are involved in that, but we skip them and ultimate result only we are establishing as a photosynthesis equation. Okay, so there are several steps in it and several intermediary compounds are formed. Scientists have tried to formulate a simple equation for photosynthesis over past 200 years. So an equation that was readily accepted and is still widely used is the one formulated and proposed by C.B. van Niel. Who is that? C.B. van Niel. He is the person Okay, in the year of 1931, which is as follows. So during the year of 1931, one basic equation which is representing the photosynthesis is formulated and proposed by C.B. Van Niel during the year of 1931. His opinion was for each molecule of carbohydrate formed, one molecule of water and one molecule of oxygen is produced. This is a very simplified equation and does not reflect the complexity of the process of photosynthesis. Yet we shall use it for now. Okay, suppose you see how he proposed. What is the proposal given by C.B. Van Niel? According to that equation, the photosynthesis is indicating CO2 plus 2H2O, okay, gives rise to CH2O plus H2O plus O2. So this is the equation he proposed. Who is that? C.B. Van Niel proposed. So according to him, for each molecule of carbohydrate formed, one molecule of water and one molecule of oxygen is produced. Suppose here the carbohydrate has to be formed. Definitely along with the carbohydrate, one molecule of water, one molecule of oxygen also should be formed. You know difference between atoms and molecules. Suppose you see water is the molecule H2O, because it's a group of atoms, indicates the molecule. Same way oxygen O2 is a group of atoms, so indicates the molecule. For every carbohydrate molecule formation, one molecule of water, one molecule of oxygen are forming or producing. Okay, so what would be the reaction to show that glucose is being synthesized? Write down a balance equation to show that. Suppose you check this clearly, it's not indicating the perfect glucose molecule chemical formula or chemical symbol. What is the chemical symbol of glucose? C6H12O6, but it is not indicating that. So later on, with many experiments done by many other scientists, a perfect equation is given by different scientists. So what is that, we will see. Okay, so what equation actually given by C.B. Van Niel is given in such a way. And next one we will see, so that is known as that plants synthesize carbohydrates. The smaller simpler ones first and form them, the more complex ones like starch and cellulose. Plants are also capable of synthesizing all other compounds like proteins, fats, etc. Remember, they're not only preparing or synthesizing carbohydrates. Plants can also prepare proteins and fats also. Sometimes we call that as lipids also. So balanced equation, if you see 6CO2 plus 12H2O. So 6 molecules of carbon dioxide reacted with 12 molecules of water in presence of sunlight, okay, in presence of sunlight and chlorophyll, to form one molecule of glucose, C6H12O6 plus 6H2O, 6 molecules of water plus 6 molecules of oxygen. So this is the well balanced equation of photosynthesis. 6CO2 plus 12H2O, C6H12O6, 6H2O plus 6O2 is the balanced equation. Okay, so extra information or additional information, if you know, let me tell you that Van Niel first worked on purple sulfur bacteria. Already I told you, sulfur bacteria, which comes under autotrophic mode of nutrition, because it can prepare its own food by using sulfur chemical. Okay, and it found light plays a specific role in photosynthesis. Instead of water, they use H2S as a starting material, hydrogen sulfide. What is meant by H2S? H2S is nothing but hydrogen sulfide. So here, instead of water, this Van Niel observed that hydrogen sulfide is playing a crucial role of starting material. Here no oxygen is liberated during photosynthesis. Instead, elemental sulfur is evolved. So actual process, photosynthesis process, oxygen need to liberate or release out. But sulfur bacteria, when it is doing the chemotrophic mode of nutrition, sulfur is releasing out. Okay, they utilize sulfur and they utilize hydrogen sulfide. Sulfur they can utilize as well as hydrogen sulfide also they can utilize. During the chemotrophic mode of nutrition, they releases sulfur gas instead of oxygen gas. Okay. Later he envisioned a similar process for photosynthesis in plants and proposed the above mentioned equation. Later Robert Hill showed oxygen is released from water. Then the equation was modified as follows. Okay. So because of that the equation is given in this way. I told you, many scientists done many experiments, especially Robert Hill did that activity and experiment, and with that he concluded this photosynthesis equation. And remember, oxygen molecule which is coming out from the during the photosynthesis process is from water, not from any other substance. Okay, not from any other substance. Let me clarify that thing. Suppose here you see there is an oxygen molecule, right? This oxygen releases from the water because H2O consists of oxygen from water. When water split into hydrogen and oxygen, from there this oxygen can be liberated. But Van Niel, when he did experiment on sulfur bacteria, he did not take in water. Instead of that he taken hydrogen sulfide. So that oxygen is not liberated. Which gas is liberated? Sulfur gas is released out. So that indicated that oxygen molecule which is released in photosynthesis process comes from water only, or the water molecule only. Okay. So that is about the introduction part of autotrophic mode of nutrition. So in this class we have discussed about what is meant by nutrition, right? What is meant by nutrition we have discussed. Two types of mode of nutrition we got the introduction, that is autotrophic and heterotrophic mode of nutrition. Autotrophic is nothing but they can prepare their own food, and this is of two types. One is phototrophic, other one is the chemotrophic mode of nutrition. Chemotrophic, best example sulfur bacteria. Phototrophic, best example all green plants comes under that, right? And we have discussed about the photosynthesis equation also. In the photosynthesis equation, the oxygen molecule which is liberated out is released from the water which is used as a raw material, and we have discussed what are the basic raw materials are present or involved in the photosynthesis process. We also discussed what is meant by photosynthesis. So next class we will see what are the basic raw materials needed for photosynthesis and how to prove that they are definitely needed to do photosynthesis. So raw materials already you remembered, right? Like CO2, H2O, light and chlorophyll. And we should do or we should discuss some of the activities to prove that to perform photosynthesis all these raw materials are needed. Okay, so that is about